Welcome, everyone, to Vision Untethered Conversations with Inspirational Leaders. My name is Jill Simonds. I am founder of Savvy Strategic Partners, a dedicated leadership team of fractional executives. We are executing vision and increasing business value to help founder owners realize freedom. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest today, Heather Willems, co-founder of Two Line Studios, a creative powerhouse known for innovative visual storytelling. With years of expertise in the design world, Heather has mastered the art of transforming ideas into striking, purposeful visuals that resonate with audiences. Whether it's branding, illustration, or digital design, their work goes beyond just aesthetics. They're all about creating meaningful connections through every project. I'm excited to dive in and learn more. And thank you so much, Heather, for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, first and foremost, what is your purpose and passion that led you to where you are and to where Two Line Studios is today?
Oh, thanks for asking. I always have a hard time just putting it into one sentence.
And it
So
doesn't have to be. No, there's not really a time limit.
I think
You're good.
what's always driven me, or what literally drew me to this work, but it's also driven, um, is I had a moment when I was 17 and my dad wanted me to go into business, ironically, and I was like, no, I'm an artist. Like I'm determined to
Yeah.
make my living as an artist. And so that kind of
Mhm.
really sparked like, what can I do with creativity? And like, I didn't have the words back then, but it's like, how do I serve with my
Mm,
strengths as a creative? And then, I was kind of like thinking about like, what is this line that goes through my career and
mhm.
my life? Like, I was an educator and it would impassion me when students would come in who were so good at what they did and they went, I have to go get a real job. And I'm like, no, you can do this. Um,
Mhm.
Building my first business, and even today, I still
Yeah.
train and mentor artists that are coming, either that are early in their career, and
Mhm.
just show them and teach them that there is a creative path um, that you can take
Yeah.
care of doing that. And then how that measures into like what I'm doing today with businesses,
Right.
um, with organizations is helping people to connect to their purpose and to like trust their vision and bring out that creativity. I really, really, truly believe that everybody is creative. Like even when you're looking at a spreadsheet, like you're able to see the story in the data. And
Mhm.
that is creativity. So I love like igniting that creativity within
Yeah.
people and then showcasing that like this really is how businesses thrive and it's when
Yeah.
people and their creativity are really at the heart of business.
I love it. Yeah, it's kind of the theme of today with the other podcast too, is more of the creative
Mm.
journey, which is
Oh,
beautiful because I think yeah, there's oftentimes this misconception. I'm kind of split brained, right? Like there's a lot of the artistic side of me. I had a photography business and wedding
yeah.
portraiture for over a decade, and a lot of the creative services was a lot more content. My background is a journalism major, and
Yep.
none of that is like infiltrated in what I do today. But I think there was this always, maybe
I
not
don't
none of it,
know.
right?
Talent.
But create the creative story. A lot of it, I should say, I tampered it. I felt like I needed to keep it in its little corner over here because I need to be pragmatic and logical. And I'm a business person and I'm helping businesses. And the more I've learned from that journey is such a vital need for us to be creative, to bring our creativity. How can we be effective problem solvers if we're not harnessing creativity, right? We're thinking our way out of this box, and it's like, what's a creative way to climb out of this box? Like we've ended up in this scenario, right? So I love that too because a lot of what you said, I have memory or just know of working with students or even our own daughters that kind of have this split mentality of like, I'm either this or I'm this. And the blend between both is so magical when we can harness parts of ourselves innately in us that are creative and not forge or try to forge a path where one can't exist with the other. So you said that so beautifully. Thank you. How are you then, or how does that purpose that you've found
Mhm.
align with the unique challenges that businesses are facing? And how are you applying that in a way that's helping them grow or storytell, or
Mhm.
how is that coming to life for you?
It shows up in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
Um, the well, some of the services that we provide, like we do visual storytelling in
Mm.
keynote presentations or whenever big ideas are presented, right? So like whether it's like on a
Yeah.
stage and people are sharing important content or they're really telling a story that, connects the purpose.
Yes.
Like we're creating these visual summaries in real time that help people engage and remember. But I think what's even more powerful is when we bring that into problem solving. So when, there's a challenge that needs to, have a solution,
Hmm.
that's maybe not perfectly clear is igniting a little bit of play, a little bit of creativity through,
Yeah.
maybe it's we're doing an innovation workshop and we're bringing in visual templates. So instead of having like a questionnaire that they're just typing into a form, they're actually instructed to draw their answers and then they have to tell a story about the drawing. So it's kind of like intentionally bringing in the creativity. So you're waking up different parts of your brain um, to come to a different solution or maybe see the very clear solution right in front of you.
Right. Beautiful. Love that.
Yeah.
What's along this journey for you? What have been some pivotal failures or learnings that you've encountered? And how, in addressing those, how has that shaped your growth?
Um, there's so many. How do I just choose one? Um,
Yeah.
I think something that, okay, so I can take an example, a very recent example of where I recognized my growth, but it had to start from a mistake, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I have an artist who's been working with me for 4 years, and she just got offered her dream job. So, we're like wrapping up our work together, and I'm super proud of her.
Mm,
I'm also sad that, she's leaving.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
so in her wrap, as we're like wrapping up her work with me, she's gone through and made a really detailed list and like prepared everything for the next person. And she took this on herself to like create this, I mean, I did help her a little bit, but like creating these training documents for the next person.
hmm.
And I loved that that was part of how she was showing up to move into her next phase and like create this space
Mm,
in the
yeah.
company. And I was not expecting that. Like I was expecting experiences from the past, early in my career, like well, I'll say 15 years ago, and I was training people, and I still, I had to learn how to be a manager while
Yeah.
I was.
Yep.
And in some of those cases, people just pieced out, and I was like, great, now I have to scramble to like, create, recreate this training for the
Right.
next. So I think,
Hmm.
if I'm able to summarize that into, a concise sentence or two, I think what my mistake was early on is that I was trying to micromanage a lot of things involved with
Hmm.
the experience. I
Hmm.
think I tried to have the answer all of the time. Um, and what I learned is that empowering people to their strengths, like letting them own their own experiences and then
Yes.
encourage them and empower them to teach it to somebody else in the future, like not only shows them that you trust them, It allows them to expand their own personal learning. They're definitely bringing more benefits into the business. And then they're also creating a path that's probably honestly better than what I initially set up to begin with.
Yeah, love it. Well, and sometimes, yeah, I think just what we learn from others through those lessons when they show up in such a powerful way um, open some blind spots for us where we weren't seeing, what was needed there or what the next step for a role might be. Yeah, it's beautiful and you can surround yourself with that.
Right.
How can business owners, speaking of kind of design, like literally design and illustrate and create, how can business owners design systems, processes that allow their companies to thrive without constant oversight to ensure sustainable growth? Are you seeing that a lot with literally the design of how they work or their methodology? How is
Um,
that showing up?
yeah, a lot of the work that I love to do the most is around visual strategy work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, um, I typically will come in and work with either, a fractional COO or perhaps a CMO, like someone who's coming in knowing that there needs to be change and transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then also understanding that there's a lot of experience in the room, that there's a lot of people who are invested in the change, and that there's also some anxiety that's and resistance that's probably going to be there because
Mm-hmm.
people are resistant to change.
Yes. Yeah.
So, one of the ways that like I don't necessarily come in and like set up people's operations, but I do often see the power of crystallizing a shared vi or crystallizing a vision,
Yes.
incorporating other people, like other experienced team members, like um, their own experiences and knowledge into that vision, and then
Mm-hmm.
doing backcasting. That's like one of the things that I love bringing into organizations is like just flipping the way that you're thinking about it. Instead of thinking of like, okay,
Yeah.
we're here today, how do we get to tomorrow? It's like, okay, well, let's just pretend that tomorrow's already wildly successful and look back and like what were the major milestones and steps that we needed to
Yeah.
in order to get there. So it's just kind of
Oh,
like looking at it backwards. I love doing that because it just yeah, it just helps people to shift their perspective. And also when um we're able to, or when I'm able to like actually visualize what people are saying instead of just typing it into a document or throwing it into ChatGPT. It's
yeah.
people can see where there's similarities, they see that where there's differences, or there might be like two visuals of a story that was told in the room that they see like, oh, what if we combined those together? So there's that collaboration and like the iteration that happens in that
Hmm.
problem solving journey that I think is so super valuable. But your question was like,
Mm.
how do visionaries or the leaders kind of like step out of
Without
the
their constant oversight.
without the
Yeah.
concept. So
Hmm.
it's creating a plan really, like setting up the milestones, having really clear actions, but also like making it visible, like making it something
Hmm.
people can see every single day. Like they can look over and be inspired, or they can look over and be like, oh, yeah, that's why this really mundane task matters right now. Having like standing champions to like, keep people on track and
Right.
they're doing each month when they hit their goals, celebrate them, what they're doing for that
Hmm.
week, and set their actions. So I think it's really, really powerful, especially as a visual learner myself, to have those goals up and visible so you can check them at a glance instead of having to search for them in a spread.
Hmm. Yeah, you brought up a really strong point and common common issue that we see among teams that we work with when it comes to, I mean, everything ties back to a vision. If there's not a vision, that everyone can rally behind and see their contribution to where we're even going, where does this even end, what are we,
Right.
then what are we all doing here, right? There's it's purpose filled when we know that there is a vision. And
Yeah.
oftentimes as visionaries, I have the ability, and I think a lot of creatives too have an ability of seeing things mentally without literally seeing it,
Right.
but so many people don't, right? And so here within teams, we have this vision that we're trying to convey, paint this picture. But what if auditory, like written, kind of documented, isn't really charting that in a way that's clear for everybody to truly see and understand? There's a
Right.
whole element missing
Right.
that, yeah, is amazing in what you create, because it is drawing and storytelling in ways that someone who is extremely visual, just because you're visionary doesn't mean you are a visual learner, or just
Right.
because, you are visual doesn't mean you can see past, documentation or just hearing what the vision is. It's like, let's really make a picture out of this, is really cool. And I think a lot of organizations are starving for that. Um, so it's a really great point. What would you say are some psychological barriers that prevent business owners from stepping back, allowing their business to move forward? And how can these obstacles be identified to overcome?
Hmm. Um, well, I think we talked about it a little bit as just like the micromanaging or just holding on to things too tightly, right? So like when I was early in my career, like just trying to have the answers for everything. And recognizing like I have a matrix in here. I have like a 4x4. Years and years and years ago, I wrote a book called Draw Your Big Idea. And in
Super
there,
cool.
I just like looked this up. When I was like,
Okay.
oh, I'm gonna think about this. So we had a fun one in here that was just kind of like, how do we map it out? Like, how do I
Yeah.
map this out? Like when I'm thinking about, do I need to, who do I need to hire next? Like, who do I give this responsibility to? Is like
Hmm.
the matrix that we have in this book is it easy? Like the top is like, is it easy or is it super hard? Do I hate it or do I love it? And so, when it's in that zone of like mastery, or even maybe like where you're challenging yourself a little bit, but you still
Hmm.
love the work, like that's the space where I see leaders thrive. And then the areas where like they don't like the work and they're not very good at it, but they feel an obligation to do it, like
Right.
that is just slowing you down. Like get somebody else in there, take it off your chest, like, and that's going to allow you to do the things that you're actually really, really good at and you love doing or that you want to learn.
Yes. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that matrix. Remind everybody listening who didn't see the title of the book,
Oh yeah,
what your
it's
book is
called
called.
Draw Your Big Idea.
Draw Your Big Idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Very
a
cool.
it's a hundred and I think it's 101 exercises, like visual exercises
Mm,
for leadership. Um, pulled from
okay.
so
Yeah.
pulled from
Amazing.
working with a lot of like corporate leadership groups.
Very cool. It kind of reminds me, you may know this book too, How to Steal Like an Artist or Steal Like an Artist.
Um, I have it on my bookshelf.
Yeah, I do too. I'm like,
Also
I've
include
got,
your email list,
we're
right?
both we're both looking over to the opposite wall of our offices at the moment, because I'm like, I know I have it in there. I just pulled it out the other day again, just as a like inspirational moment. So yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. That's very
Yep.
cool. Very cool. What role have you witnessed and experienced as a business owner? What role does cultivating a strong and autonomous culture play in enabling the business to operate independently of you as a founder?
I think that culture is a huge part of it. there it's like that's where, well, I'm also thinking like, well, what makes up culture too, right? So
Hmm.
it's like what
Mm,
is your purpose? Like what is, we're talking about where is
yeah.
the company's
Having a
purpose, the
vision.
company's vision,
Hmm.
but then also where people can avoid burnout and really thrive within the organization is when they've identified their own purpose and
Hmm.
their own vision, and how does that align with the organization. There's the values of the company that kind of set um, it's the goals for the company, but it's really trickles down to the behaviors that need to be
Yeah.
associated with those values. But also when there's really space for teams and employees to look at like what are my personal values and how am I showing up in my personal values, and is that aligned with what the company needs and wants? And I think when there is that space for there's a little bit of space for autonomy so people can
Hmm.
this is about how they work or where they work or what order they're working in. Like that also contributes to that positive company culture. And
Yeah.
basically all of these things are like helping to avoid burnout, right? It's like I think there's a statistic that says like when uh, somebody has a best friend at work, they're like 60% more productive like in their work environment, or at least they're.
Mm,
And even if I think actually I'm so sorry I don't have it like at the tip of my tongue right now, but the perception that they're more productive and that they're contributing more is there just because like
mm,
people's energy and excitement and they're
yeah.
bringing that into the workspace, so it's helping them be more productive. They're helping to get more things done, or they're helping to
Yeah.
contribute just like I don't know, the joy
Yeah. Right. They're more
the
engaged, right?
environment.
We've all been around, we've all been around people in organizations that you can just tell are not happy where they are. And that contributes to the culture in negative ways. Like maybe that's just one sore spot in the dynamic of a team. I've been in those teams where like, gosh, the rest of us are so happy. And then this person walks in the room and the energy just like gets sucked out of the room. Or just in general, a widespread culture problem where nobody's really happy. And it's just complete disengagement. Like kind of show up, do my bare minimum, but their mind, their heart is elsewhere. So yeah, I could see. I like. Had never heard that yet in terms of like the best friend part
I'll have to
because
look it up. I just read it like not too long ago, so I'm sorry.
yeah. No, regardless of the statistic though, I think it's so true. It's like when we're surrounded in company of
Mhm.
individuals that we enjoy being around, that share our values, that that the energy is positive, then we're all that much more engaged in what we are doing too, because we're there in it together. So
Right.
yeah, regardless of that statistic and how that measures out, I think that's so true. It plays
Yeah.
such a it's everything, right? The culture plays such an invaluable role in that.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
a social health that we have, and that's becoming more and more important. We know about physical health, we know about our mental health. Now,
Mm,
the next phase is like our social health. Like, how do we cultivate that within organizations? So people want to be together, they want to go to work, and are really in that, have community, right? Because
yeah.
that is one of our human needs. Like we thrive.
Yes.
We thrive in tribes, right? Like
Yep.
that's why we're all here today is because of that community. And so
Hmm.
it's not only like part of like avoiding burnout is like having that community and having friends in the workplace, but it's also contributing to that social health that's going to
Yes.
exponentially support and drive business forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Why is self-awareness so vital in that personal growth? You talked a little bit about health, right? So much of our the health in a company, the health in a team all comes down to each individual's personal health. So why would you say that's essential for business owners? And how do traits and personal growth and development contribute to the long-term success as a whole?
Mhm. Um, I think I will just answer it from a personal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I don't even know how long ago, but I remember when I took my first like personal development workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back and I felt like I had this greater awareness of how I moved through space. Like I had an appreciation and awareness of the energy that I brought into the
Yeah.
room, positive or negative, right? So like
Yes.
sometimes I'd have to be like, I'd have to pause and take a breath before I opened the door to my office because I was coming in with a lot of like maybe not positive energy, but just
Mm,
pausing and being like, how do I want to show up for other people? And the only way that you're able to show up and bring in that positive energy is if you're aware of like what's happening internally for yourself. Um,
mm,
remember,
yeah.
I remember that was one of the biggest things, like from that very, very first personal development workshop. And people in my team came up to me and they're like, "What happened to you?" Seriously, what happened to you? Because I want to do it. And then other people on our team started taking that
Hmm.
program. And it was just like the act of pausing and
Yeah.
reflecting on what are my thoughts and my feelings right now. And then
Hmm.
back into the thing that you were doing, but just like creating that habit of acknowledging like what are my thoughts and my feelings? Like how am I showing up? How do I want to
Yeah,
be? And it just has a ripple effect. It has a
it
ripple effect
does.
on the energy that we bring matters
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
much.
it does. Well said. So, what are some practical steps you would suggest entrepreneurs who are struggling to delegate while maintaining alignment with their vision?
Um, I think, just kind of like along this theme of, we've been talking about purpose, we've been talking about personal values and community and connections. And I think what the through line is, we've been talking about creativity, but I think the through
Hmm.
line is like looking at where our strengths as leaders, but then also our strengths within our teams. And
Hmm.
um, even tying back to, some of the mistakes that I made early on in my career, I think I just assumed that everybody was just like me. They were hungry to learn and they, had some sort of the personality where they would just like do it until they got it right and then move on. Um,
Hmm.
so I think what is very helpful is to recognize where people's strengths are on their team, like where their passions are
Right.
themselves, then empower
Hmm.
them to be in a role where they can really do their best every day and then encourage others, in their community to do the same.
Yes.
The community of the team.
Hmm. So good. That's really good. Yeah, and it's as leaders, our ultimate responsibility is elevating others, right? Creating and helping shepherd that and be stewards of that. So,
Right.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah, 'cause
good.
at the end of the day, like we can say like, oh, we made, or the end of the day being our life. You can look,
Hmm. Right.
how did I move through this world? Like, oh, I made a lot of money. Great, that's good. We can do that, and that's helpful, but also like allowing others to flourish and empowering
Yeah.
them to do the thing that
Be
that
called
they're
to or
called to do.
yeah. Yeah. So good. Well, Heather, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your creative, brilliant mind with us. If anyone wants to learn more about you, what you do, and your team, where can they find you?
You can always jump over to Two Line Studios, Twoline, singular, but
Hmm.
studios.com. And then on LinkedIn is a great place if you want to connect personally.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here, Heather, and we'll see everybody next time.